Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and welcome to Locked On NHL. Of course, it's our Western Conference Wednesday, and thank you so much for making Locked On NHL your first listen of the day. You know where to find us on all your favorite streaming platforms and on YouTube as well. Also, if you're watching, there's probably like a bulldozer or a construction vehicle of some sorts hanging out behind us because, well, I live in a construction zone. So today we are going to be doing our Western Conference Wednesday preview for the season. And I figured today would be a great day to do that, get ahead of the game. And of course, if you're listening to Locked On NHL throughout the week, you already know that that's happening. That's happening. So let's jump into today's episode, starting with the Sharks.
It's on camera.
Yep.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle Demetrius of Locked On Sharks, and I'm back with my co-host JD, and we're here to give you the quick and dirty 5-minute preview of everything San Jose for the upcoming 21-22 season. The first thing on everybody's mind, what is the biggest storyline to watch this season with San Jose, JD?
I think it's if this team is either going to be a playoff team or a tank team, or if they're going to be in the creamy middle that nobody likes. So they spent a lot of money this offseason, or not a lot of money, but they spent a lot of effort to try to make this a playoff team again, and want to know if Doug Wilson's quick fixes can come to fruition.
Yes, when two paths converge in the wood, take the one that doesn't just go in the middle.
Yes.
We don't want them to be the creamy middle team where you just miss the playoffs. They got to commit one way or the other. Go all in or go all out.
Yes.
That's where we're at. Okay. I'm taking this one because it's will a successful season if your team blanks? And it's if Erik Karlsson returns to form. Noted Erik Karlsson stan, defender of all things.
House Karlsson?
House Karlsson? Sure. Yeah, why not? Let's go with that. If he's healthy again after a couple years of downplay, especially with his injuries and stuff like that, but he's finally talking about having a full off season to recover, a normal one. He's healthy. He hasn't had surgeries and stuff like that. I think if San Jose gets him back to first pair, we're not saying he has to be elite or Norris caliber, but if he gets back to first pair and really is that engine that drives the defense, I think San Jose is going to be quite successful and stay out of the creamy middle. Now, on the flip side, what happens if they're unsuccessful?
I think for them, it's some of these young guys aren't able to, like if your Dahlins or if Eklunds and some of these young guys aren't able to kind of step up, and then guys like Timo and LeBanc, if they're not able to return to form and they just continue on the path that they've been, and the goaltending falls apart, that's where the team will hit the tank. So, which might be the best thing for them.
Yeah, the youth movement, the youth need to be here. The Utes, we need the kids. Please help us, because we already know the bones of this team is kind of getting old. So if the kids fall by the wayside, that's going to be a disaster of a season.
Yes.
This is the greatest question ever asked, because for us it's easy. Who is a relatively unknown player who could be a household name by the end of the season? Say it with me.
William Eklund. Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, truck horns like we're in an Ellie video. E5, if he makes the squad, has potential to win the Calder. He is nasty. He fell to 7. NHL GMs are very dumb.
Yes.
Doug Wilson was not. He is going to be a star in this league. There's no question about it. And it's just a matter of if he starts when he's 18 or he starts when he's 19. But if he makes the Sharks, William Eklund is coming for you.
Yes. All hail William Eklund.
All right. How will the season end, JD? What's your prediction?
I think they are a creamy middle team that just misses out on the playoffs, unfortunately. I think they're going to be right there in the end. They're not going to do anything at the trade deadline, and then they unfortunately miss out on the playoffs. The worst case scenario.
And with that, stay tuned to Locked On Sharks. We will cover everything this season, including the creamy middle.
So we're back. I absolutely love the positivity from the guys at Locked On Sharks. I think that they're so like they buy into what they're selling. So, like they said, they can't be in the middle. They need to commit to tanking or winning. So that's very exciting. I think that, like they said, William Eklund is going to be a star. He's going to potentially rejuvenate this team. And I really appreciated the Erik Karlsson talk, because as an Erik Karlsson fan, stan, defender, I really want to see him do well. And there's nothing I want more than for him to succeed. But, we are going to hear from JD of the Southern California with the Ducks. So let's hear it.
Good evening from the pond in Anaheim. Jason JD Hernandez here from Locked On Ducks, here with my preseason predictions. So we're going to make this fast because we got a game going on behind me starting in a little bit. So first off, the big storyline for the Anaheim Ducks is how are the kids going to play? I'm talking specifically about Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale, among others. Zegras, as you may recall last year, did not get the requisite amount of games in order to be eligible for a rookie. So Zegras is still a rookie this season. And of course, will he even make the roster? There's a question about that as well. Will Jamie Drysdale make the team? Both kids are still very young, and both are still fighting for a playoff spot. So those are two storylines that the Ducks are going to be keeping an eye on. The other big storyline, will Dallas Eakins stick around? Is he going to get fired? When will he get fired? Will he stay for the entire season, or will Joel Bouchard possibly come in mid-season? There's a lot of question marks about that. As far as what would make a successful season for the Ducks, let's be honest here. The Ducks are projected to be dead last in the division. In some circles, they're projected dead last in the league. So I hate to say this, but maybe it might be a successful season if the Ducks just embrace the rebuild, as Bob Murray finally admitted to, and go for that number one pick. So that's how this could be a successful season for the Ducks, if they get that number one or even number two pick after the season's done. No more of this not winning the lottery. It would be unsuccessful if the Ducks try to make a playoff push, wind up missing the playoffs anyway, thereby hurting their chances at a lottery pick. So I don't know. That's how it can be unsuccessful. As far as players, I got a couple players that I like a lot. They were former San Diego Gulls. Ready? Sam Carrick. He played a few games for the Ducks last season. He could play a few games for the Ducks this season. He's the captain for the Gulls. He could prove to be a valuable piece. So watch out for Sam Carrick, possibly. And I know I've said his name a lot. The Elite 1C, Derek Grant, you always gotta watch out for that. Nick Delorier, watch out for him. But always keep an eye on the young kids. I think we're gonna see more of the emergence of the young ones, especially Sonny Milano. I talked about him on a recent broadcast. Sonny Milano could be that name that you got to watch out for as far as names to pay attention to in the future. And finally, my official prediction for this season. I've said this on the podcast. The Ducks might finish dead last, not just in the division, in the league. Thereby guaranteeing a top 3 spot in this year's deep NHL draft. That's going to do it from here at the Ponda. Please be sure to click on that subscribe button. Make sure you're following Locked On Anaheim Ducks. Follow me at StimpyJD on Twitter. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Ducks. And this is Jason JD Hernandez signing off from the Ponda, your host of Locked On Ducks.
So JD of the North, JD of the South. Really, it's kind of fortunate that the Ducks are just buying into their rebuild. I feel like buying in is going to be a common theme of this podcast. But, I think that the Ducks' future is bright as long as, they want to continue to admit that they're in the rebuild. And I think that the rebuild kind of comes along with getting rid of that. I'm not saying like they'll get rid of the star prospect, obviously, but it's going to be a challenging time to be a top prospect because you could get packaged up and sent somewhere for a star player. But coming up next, we'll have the rest of the division, but I did just want to talk to you about Shopify. Shopify is a great way to reach customers online and across social networks. I've used it to buy makeup products and certain brands. They'll like contract through Shopify, so it's great. It's more than just a store. Shopify grows with you, and it's just a really great way to gain insights as you grow and detailed reporting of conversion rates, taxes, profit margins, and grow your business with Shopify. Today, go to shopify.com/lockedonnhl right now. That is shopify.com/lockedonnhl, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Shopify.com/lockedonnhl. And of course, fantasy hockey's here. I know that people have already done their drafts, and that's mind-blowing to me because I'm not participating this year. But sign up for free today, and as a special offer for you Locked On NHL fans, you'll be entered to win an official NHL Nathan McKinnon jersey simply just by signing up. Go to fantrax.com/lockedonnhl today. And Fantrax is the top dynasty fantasy hockey platform in the industry. And you can import your leagues from other servers to their platform. So Fantrax is the most customizable platform in the industry. And I don't know about you, but I like being able to customize and, move as things go. And they're among the most trusted names in the fantasy sports, offering hockey, football, baseball, basketball, college football, golf, soccer, and NASCAR. And if there's anything lacking in your current fantasy manager, Fantrax likely has it. So head on over to fantrax.com/lockedon and sign up today. That's Fantrax, fantrax.com/lockedon. Well, you guys know that we have more to come. So why don't we jump to Locked On Kings? Sarah is normally here with me on days like today, but she is not. And that's okay because everybody deserves a break. So let me fire up her video and you'll hear from her today.
Hey hockey fans, this is Sarah Evan-Pato from Locked On Los Angeles Kings with some things for you to keep an eye out on this season. The single biggest storyline to watch out for with the Kings, well, I have two words for you: Quentin Byfield. The addition of Phil Deneau as the Kings' second-line center made things a bit murkier for the 2020 first-round draft pick. He played 6 NHL games last season. He's the future for the Kings, but the team is going to need to decide if they want him taking on bottom 6 minutes in the NHL or first-line duties in the AHL. Yes, he's going to be in the NHL sooner rather than later, but watching to see how soon is going to be the story for fans. This season is going to be a success if the team even contends for the playoffs. Rob Blake showed faith in the direction his team is going in by acquiring Deneau and Victor Arvidsson in the offseason, so now is the time for the team to prove him right, to prove that they're ready to make the jump. Yeah, no one is saying that the Kings are going to be Stanley Cup contenders, but in an overall weak Pacific Division, they should at least be in the conversation for the playoffs. It's going to be an unsuccessful year if they get another top 15-ish draft pick. Sure, the whole mushy middle of not good enough for the playoffs, but not bad enough to be top 3 in the worst of the league is a frustrating place to be. But now is the time for the Kings' young players to step up, help propel this team forward. The team needs to be better than they were last year. We're past the time when moral victories should mean anything, so they need to be way better than they've been. A relatively unknown player on the team who could be a name that you're going to want to keep an eye on, that is Vladimir Kachev. The Kings signed the 25-year-old forward as a free agent after he spent parts of 7 seasons in the KHL. He's fast, he's creative, and if his performance in the preseason is any indication, he is going to be a blast to watch. Some people are even saying he might be a dark horse for the Calder this year. He's been generating good chemistry on a line with Gabe Vilardi and Elias Anderson in the preseason so far, and he could help provide that depth scoring that the Kings desperately need. My official prediction for how the season ends, my bold Kings prediction that I'm going to stick with, is that they make the playoffs. Sure, as a wild card most likely, but it doesn't matter how you get in, just that you do, right? To keep up with everything happening with the Kings this season, make sure you're listening to Locked On Los Angeles Kings wherever you get your podcasts.
So coming up next, we have the Edmonton Oilers, who did have a bit of a busy offseason this past summer. So did they finally do enough to get Connor McDavid the support he needs?
Hey, it's Hernan Salas here from the Locked On Oilers podcast, setting you up with the season preview for Locked On NHL's YouTube and podcast feeds, breaking down everything Edmonton Oilers. So what is the single biggest storyline to watch with your team this season, I think, for the Edmonton Oilers? It's the new guys. I mean, it was deemed the summer of Holland. Many fans here, it's almost a split. People liked what he did, some not so much. Some like a few moves, some don't like some others. It's been an interesting summer here, but are they going to pay off? Is Zach Hyman, that 7-year deal, how is he going to look alongside Connor McDavid? How about Warren Foegele, who was traded for a very popular player here, a young, really good defenseman in Ethan Bear? Can Derek Ryan solidify that third-line center spot? I mean, Brandon Perlini, he came in on a low-risk deal, but there's a huge upside there, and he's adding an excellent preseason. Can he continue that in the regular season? How about on the back end? I mean, Duncan Keith, the move that received a lot of pushback here in Edmonton. Can the 38-year-old contribute here? He's going to be on a lesser role, but it's still a big role. He's going to be top 4 here. And Cody Ceci, another guy that got a long-term deal here, 4 years. We'll see what happens. He's going to play with Keith. So for me, it's the new guys. What can they do? Can they take this team to the next level? When I say the next level, can they have success in the playoffs, not alone just in the regular season? So for me, the biggest storyline to watch with the Edmonton Oilers is the new guys. Now, this team will be successful if the goaltending holds, and it's the 3rd year in a row you're going to go with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. 39 years old and 33-year-old Mike Smith coming off a fantastic season. Mikko Koskinen was so, but is it risky to go with these guys again? I mean, they've gotten done in the last 2 seasons. They've played really well. They got this team into the playoffs, but they had no playoff success. Now, it's not all on the goaltending. The team hasn't been very good in the last 2 postseasons. So, but for me, it's the big one. Is can this goaltending hold and can you make a run with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen? Because you don't have Stalock anymore, and Stuart Skinner, even though he's looked good, it's a big ask from a young goaltender. The Oilers don't have a lot of money, and I don't know how many teams are going to trade a number 1 goaltender in season. So for me, this team will be successful if the goaltending holds. The Oilers will be unsuccessful. There's 2 parts. Goaltending, obviously. If it doesn't hold, obviously they'll struggle mightily, because I just don't know how you bring in another goaltender. I mean, there's always a way, but you get what I'm saying. And the defense, I think the defense is huge. I have no issues with Burry and Nurse, but there's 2 guys, Duncan Keith, Cody Ceci. They're starting the season together on the same pair. Cody Ceci's taking a little bit of heat already in the preseason here in Edmonton, but that's just Edmonton. But I think those 2 guys, if those 2 guys have good seasons, the Oilers will be fine. If both those guys struggle, the Oilers are going to struggle. And throw Evan Bouchard in there. I think he's the X factor. The coach has said so as well. Young defenseman, only played 14 games last year. He's going to ask to do a lot more on this team, play a full NHL schedule. Can he handle it? So I think this team will be unsuccessful if goaltending in the D doesn't hold up. Who is a relatively unknown player on your team that could be a household name? Up front, there's really no one because everybody's pretty much known. There's really no outside of McLeod, but we don't even know if he's going to be in the opening day lineup. So goaltending, same thing. But I'll say Evan Bouchard then, because he is a young guy. He's going to get his first look as a regular in the NHL. He skates well. He's a big guy. He's 6'3". He moves a puck. That's his best asset. He's good on the power play, gets his shots through. But he is going to play for the first time as a regular in the NHL. How is he going to handle the minutes? How is he going to handle playing every night? So a lot of questions for Evan Bouchard. So far, so good in the preseason, but the regular season's a whole different ball game. So we'll see Evan Bouchard, what he can do this year. But he's probably a guy that's a little bit unknown, but that might be a household name by season's end. And official prediction for how the Oilers season will end. I do think they will be a playoff team. I think they'll be top 3. I think Vegas is going to be in there, and then that third team, I have no idea because it's such a crapshoot right now over here. So it can be anybody. It can be Vancouver. Can it be the Kraken? Can it be the LA Kings? Can it be who knows? But I'm going to roll with the Oilers in their division, top 2, top 3 for sure. So, and I think they will be a playoff team. All right, I hope you enjoyed the Edmonton Oilers season preview here for the Locked On Oilers and the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, I am Hernan Salas, your host on the Locked On Oilers podcast.
Coming up next, we will be talking about the rest of the division and some more fantasy hockey analysis. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. You guys know that I love my Built Bar. If you listen to any of my shows, you know it's on my desk for a reason. I just got a new package. So Built Bar is a delicious protein bar that will help you get through your day and hold you over. And it's a great source for protein, great source for fuel, really. They're high in fiber, low in carbs, and obviously high in protein, low in sugar. They're great for anyone who's looking to maintain weight, lose weight, whatever you see fit. Honestly, Built Bar is perfect for everyone. Okay, Built Bar is perfect for you. Me. I almost said my cat, but cats can't have chocolate. So my neighbors, whoever. So head on over to built.com today and sign up. You're not signing up. I completely lied. I'm so used to saying that. Head on over to built.com today and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off of your next order at built.com. And, get in on the goodness. Get that cookie dough crunch, because that is delicious. And of course, we've talked a lot about sports betting and fantasy hockey. So, of course, I'm going to talk to you about BetOnline AG. BetOnline AG is your online sportsbook experts. They have everything you need for your sports betting needs, from live updates to current props to games, you name it. BetOnline AG is there for you. And the great thing about BetOnline AG is that they always have some sort of promotion going. So if you head on over to betonline.ag today, you can get a 100% welcome bonus when you sign up and use promo code NFL100. And then, of course, you're always going to want to sign up and make your first deposit with promo code LOCKEDON. So head on over to BetOnline AG today and make sure to sign up for your free money, basically. So we're going to round out the show with some more fantastic hockey predictions and previews from our local experts. I think that, we've got a season ahead of us. I think that the Pacific Division is going to be very interesting in terms of competitiveness, in terms of wanting to make the playoffs. And I think that most teams are going to be looking to, make up for the loss that they suffered in the expansion draft. And by that, I am talking about the Calgary Flames. So allow me to reintroduce myself as the season for Locked On Flames is previewed, if I can pull it up. What is up, you guys? It's Jess Belmosto here from Locked On Calgary Flames, and I'm here to give you a division preview, and unfortunately, we do need to talk about the hard things today. So, the biggest storyline to watch for this season, I think, aside from the captaincy vacancy issue, is, of course, the Matthew Kachuk and Johnny Gadro contracts. We do talk about this a lot on the show in regards to Tree Living putting all of his eggs in one basket in regards to that $9 million qualifying offer, and then Johnny Gadro wanting his well-deserved payday. Johnny said there's not going to be much contract talk, but I don't know how long that'll last. And of course, I think that Matthew Kachuk is kind of going to pop his head back in this season and we need to see how he handles adversity. Regular season adversity before we can jump to his contract and him potentially being the captain. And of course, you know, this team does need a little bit of success under their belt. They have not won a playoff round in quite some time. You know, I think going back to 2015, it's been first round exits or missing the playoffs entirely or winning a play-in round and then losing. So in order for this team to be successful, they need to be a cohesive group. They need to all be on the same page. That discipline needs to be there. And of course, they all need to put last year behind them and actually strive to move forward. Because, you know, it's a lot of lip service every media day, every preseason. You know, this is going to be a year where we take those steps. But unfortunately, their actions don't match with the words. And it's going to be a little difficult if Daryl Sutter does not want to make a difference. Not make a difference, but, you know, he doesn't want to adjust to his players. And the players don't really want to adjust to him occasionally. So we'll have to see where that goes. And this is going to be an unsuccessful season if everyone is on different pages. Not even on different pages. If they're not even on the same line in the same book, on the same page. I feel like last year we talked about this a lot too, is that they were on entirely different books in entirely different genres, and it was not good. It was really, really bad. And I really don't want to see a repeat of last year because this team does have potential. And I'm not saying Stanley Cup finalist potential, but we saw what underdogs can do in the playoffs and how they can just kind of squeak their way in. Montreal, I'm looking at you. So we'll have to see how that kind of unfolds, but it's going to be stressful. I think that there's not a lot of puck movement skill on the blue line, at least so far in the preseason. And losing Mark Giordano is, you know, those are some big skates to fill. And a relatively unknown player that could be a household name by the end of the season is going to be Andrew Mangiapane. I'm sorry, this kid had a fantastic season last year, and he continued to dominate in Worlds, and he's coming in hot. He has some, you know, momentum behind him, and I think that that's going to be the best thing for him, and he could really emerge into being not a star, but, you know, he's going to work his way up there. I definitely think that this could be his good year. And I don't think Oliver Shillington by any means is going to be a household name, but I think that he's going to be on the radar of more people than, you know, in the past few years. He's had an excellent camp, and I think that it's finally time for him to see some minutes with the big club on a more consistent basis. And my final prediction, my official prediction for the season, I should say, is I don't want to, you know, put any numbers out there, but I think that the Flames squeak into the playoffs. I think that they just slide their way in there at the end because there's no other. I don't see this team as ultra competitive, at least from what I'm seeing right now. But I hope I'm wrong. I do hope I'm wrong, and I hope they prove me wrong, and they dominate. I do. I hope that very much for them. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and you can catch my show every day, Locked On Flames, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. Bye-bye. I don't think I need to elaborate more on that. I think that she did a good job. But again, I'm a little unbiased. I mean, a little biased rather. So with the Flames, I think that, again, it's going to come down to keeping Matthew Kachuk, Johnny Gadro, and Elias Lindholm on the same line. And I think that that's going to be ideal, the most realistic, and hopefully what happens. So coming up next, we are going to, of course, talk about the Canucks, because they're next. They're next. I feel like them and the Flames could be neck and neck. So let's hear from the Locked On Canucks guys.
All right, my name is Nick Bondi. As always, I'm joined with my brilliant co-host, Lachlan Irvin, of the Locked On Canucks podcast. And this is going to be our season preview for the Vancouver Canucks this upcoming season. Lachlan, we'll start off with this. What do you think is the biggest storyline to watch for the Vancouver Canucks this season? I'll go right off the bat first. I think it's the defense. I think it is the defense of this team. If this defense can be, I'm not even going to raise a high bar for them. I'm going to just say competent. If the defense is competent, the Vancouver Canucks can do fairly well this season. But what's your biggest storyline to watch for this team this season?
Honestly, the biggest storyline for me is very general. It's the fact of, are they going to make the playoffs this year? And that's simply because of the fact that I think there's a lot of people's jobs on the line this year. I think a lot of people there's specifically general manager Jim Benning hedged a lot of bets that this team can be a playoff team this year, particularly in the way he handled the offseason. And I think if that does not come to fruition, I think you're going to see us next offseason see some heads roll in the front office.
Yeah, it's playoffs or bust for the Vancouver Canucks, I think, this season. What do you think, Lachlan, will be a successful season for the Vancouver Canucks? This will be a successful season for the Vancouver Canucks if blank. I'll go first again. Like you just mentioned, it's the playoffs. This team has to make the playoffs this year. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If they make the playoffs, I don't care if it's, first, second, third in the Pacific Division wild card. A successful season for the Vancouver Canucks is making the playoffs.
Agreed. After last year, especially in finishing dead last in that North Division, that this is what they need to do. They need to make the postseason. I would also throw in just the fact of seeing like their young stars kind of take that next step. I think it's more palatable of a season, even if, say, they finish 9th or 10th, provided that you get, another step forward from Pettersson, from Hughes, Besser. Obviously, the younger guys like Nils Höglander, Vasily Podkolzin coming into his first year, Thatcher Demko in his first full 82-game season as an NHL starter. I think if you get good progression from those guys, at the very least, you can take a lot of good stories out of this year.
And this, what do you think will be an unsuccessful season for the Vancouver Canucks?
I mean, it's pretty simple. Like you said, if they miss the playoffs and that comes at the cost of, say, a lot of players not living up to the expectations, and it's just an overall team cannot find the chemistry that they found, say, back in 2019-20, that's a pretty clear unsuccessful year. With the amount of money that the Canucks are putting into this team this season, with the amount of big offseason acquisitions Jim Benning made to try and bolster the roster, if they don't pan out, especially guys like Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Jason Dickinson, if those guys aren't able to keep up and find the same success here in Vancouver, it's really going to be hard to justify this as a good year. What about you?
It is, an unsuccessful season is if they don't make the playoffs. You're 100% right there, I think. And I'll couple it with if, their major stars seem to regress or, just plateau a bit. I mean, we all know Quinn Hughes' struggle in his sophomore season, right? It's not a secret. He was not the same dominant force I think he was in his rookie season where he almost won the Calder over Cale Makar. So if they don't make the playoffs, and let's say a player like Quinn Hughes doesn't approach the heights that he had in his rookie season, that would be a very bad season for the Vancouver Canucks. Lachlan, who is a relatively unknown player who could be a household name by season's end for the Vancouver Canucks? And my vote for this is Vasily Podkolzin. I think people are going to find, or around the league, are going to realize that this guy is a very, very good two-way winger in the National Hockey League. We've said it on this podcast before, Russian Mark Stone. That's the ceiling. That's the bar. Russian Mark Stone. But I think people are going to realize how good of a two-way winger Vasily Podkolzin is. He may not put up, the gaudy point totals that some rookies have in the past, but I think he's going to be a very good two-way winger right off the bat.
I would agree with you on that. I also want to throw in a guy we've actually talked about quite a bit on this show. So if you've listened to the show, to our show before, you probably already know who I'm about to say. But Jack Rathbone, who's going to come in and probably play top 4 defensive minutes right out of the gate here. He's not going to necessarily steal the show like say a Vasily Podkolzin would, or say Nils Höglander as a rookie did last year. But I think he's going to take a very big step forward this year. I think he's going to be easily a recognizable member of the Canucks by the end of this season, especially considering he's probably going to get some time on the power play. He's going to get time he's going to get a lot more time in the offensive zone to play with some of the Canucks' bigger members. I think Rathbone is your guy this year.
And quickly, Lachlan, this is the big question. Your official prediction for the Vancouver Canucks. Mine's simple. It's going to be third in the Pacific Division. They beat the Oilers in the first round.
I will say that I'm gonna go even more positive here. I'm gonna say they're gonna get second in the Pacific. I think the Pacific is a relatively weak division. I think you got a lot of teams in the middle of a rebuild and some teams that actively made themselves worse this year. And outside of Vegas, there is no real clear favorite to make the postseason. A lot of teams could make the case. I think the Canucks are going to finish second and clinch that home ice advantage in the first round.
All right, my name is Nick Bondi.
Wowee. That prediction at the end, I wasn't expecting that. But I think the Canucks can be a competitive team as long as, they stay healthy. And I don't know, OEL out there during bag skates, first day of training camp, didn't look too up to speed. But again, that was the first day. I probably wouldn't look too good out there on my first day either. But I don't know. I think that coming in second, that's quite the bold assumption. And to round out our show, we are going to hear from Seattle Kraken host Erica Ayala, who has been like boots on the ground in Seattle this entire training camp. So let's hear from her and hear what she has to say.
What's cracking, hockey fans? Erica Lindsay Ayala, your host of Locked on Kraken, and I'm here to bring you our preview of the Pacific Division through the eyes, of course, of the Seattle Kraken. This is part of course, the Locked on NHL Network. I hope you've enjoyed what everyone has said before, but I gotta be honest, you should definitely make Locked on Kraken your first listen of the day. And here's why. As far as our biggest storyline, it's our first season, our first official NHL season in 21-22. Everyone's excited. All of the local teams, the local schools, the local businesses, and even, yes, getting a shout out on the premiere of Grey's Anatomy season 18. So you best believe that by far is our biggest storyline. As far as what this team is going to need to be successful, we're going to need a few of the forwards on the roster to really punch up in their weight, or essentially play and perform much better than they did last season. On paper, the offensive showing is a little bit weak for the Seattle Kraken, but in what I've been able to see in training camp and preseason, I do think that there are a handful of players that could really, truly have a career season and a breakout year, and that's what we're going to need to be successful. Now, on the other side, I don't think that the Seattle Kraken will be successful if they don't get breakout seasons from their goaltending. Now, the defensive core talked about it before on the show. Ron Francis and his team wanted to build from the back out. And so there's a lot of pressure to really contribute on the defensive side of things. And I think that the defense and the goaltenders have taken that to heart in camp. What I think, though, will make it that they're unsuccessful is if those goaltenders, for whatever reason, kind of fall into a little bit of a funk. We've seen that happen with Philip Grubauer and the Colorado Avalanche. How much was that him? How much was that the team? I guess we'll find out. But when it comes to Chris Driedger, in the preseason, he really has talked about trying to find that balance of getting as much time and repetition on the ice to make him comfortable, but also having to kind of fit into the schedule of a team playing together for the first time. I really think that Driedger is putting in the work to be able to perform at his absolute best and to meet some of the personal goals that he has for this season, but we will not be successful if Grubauer and Driedger and all of the rest of the goaltenders and defense in particular don't have stellar performances. No pressure though, folks. As far as players that I think will become household names this season, I really like the top line that we've been seeing roll out, centered by Jared Mccann. The left winger is playing center. He's a centerman for the Seattle Kraken. He's talked in preseason to us as the media about this is an adjustment, particularly knowing what he's supposed to do defensively, which again, as I just mentioned, is extremely important and is a foundational element and piece to how this Seattle Kraken team wants to play. So the stakes are high for Mccann, but he's playing on a line and already has some chemistry with Jaden Schwartz and Jordan Eberle. I really like the Triple J line. I hope it lasts. I know that Mccann slid in there while Wenberg was away as his fiance delivered their first child. Congratulations, of course, to Alex and Felicia and baby Rio. But I like Mccann with Schwartz and Eberle, and I think he can be a standout player for this team. Another player, and I've seen a few other people say this, but Ryan Donato, love the energy that he's bringing to this team. Now, as far as my predictions for this team, I'm sticking with what I've been saying on Locked On Kraken, and that is I do believe that the Seattle Kraken will finish in the top 3 of the Pacific Division, which should be enough to get them into the playoffs if indeed they can reach that mark. I do think, however, if they are top 3 in the Pacific Division, that they will have to fight and they will have to claw to get there, and it might come right down to the wire. But you know what? That will build character, and it sure will make for an exciting first season. But I'm sticking with my guns there. The Seattle Kraken will indeed make the playoffs in their first ever NHL season. That's what we have here. But if you want more, make sure that you are tuned in daily and make Locked On Kraken your first listen of the day. Until I catch you over there, Erica Lindsay Ayala signing out.
Erica's fantastic. She has so much energy, charisma. Like, she could coach the Kraken. Like, I don't know if there's like position for like team morale, but she could be like that person to just like hype them up, because Erica is just fantastic. Absolutely loved going on her show. The earrings were a fantastic touch. And I think that, you know, there was a really great analysis of this inaugural season. You know, I think a lot of people are going to be comparing them to Vegas, but they're not Vegas. They're in the same division as Vegas, but you don't know what you're going to be working with. And I really think that, you know, kind of what everyone else has said, that, you know, it's going to come down to the wire and everyone's going to have to kind of claw and scratch their way to that playoff spot or wild card spot. So we're going to have to keep an eye out on that. Tune in to everyone's shows. But of course, when we talk about all this, we are also talking about fantasy hockey. So why don't I cue you in for a fantastic Locked On NHL Pacific Fantasy Preview from our fantasy expert, Scott.
Hello, I'm Scott Cullen of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with a look at the Pacific Division. in the National Hockey League, and it sure looks like this division is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights and then everyone else. But that does leave some playoff spots up for grabs. The Edmonton Oilers, Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks, they all probably have playoff hopes, but so too would the expansion Seattle Kraken. And then teams like the San Jose Sharks and the Los Angeles Kings, they probably think they're ready to compete too. Even the Anaheim Ducks, they might want to get into that contenders mix, but they're probably a year or two away from having realistic hopes. Now, who's a player in the Pacific Division that I would consider a have-to-have? And that would be defenseman Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, of course, take Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl if that opportunity is available to you. But if we're looking at somebody who can provide some real value, you have Theodore, who in his past 76 games for Vegas over the past season and a bit, he has 62 points, 244 shots on goal. He's gone from being a quality kind of up-and-coming puck-moving defenseman into one of the premier offensive defensemen in the league. So by all means, hop in on Shea Theodore and ride the wave, because he's likely to put up some good numbers. If there's a player in this division to avoid, it's probably Sean Monahan, Calgary Flames. He's a 3-time 30-goal scorer, but he also managed just 10 goals in 50 games last season and seems maybe extra risky this season, especially if he's not lining up with Johnny Gadro, and that does appear to be the case. So I would not like to take my chances on Sean Monahan having a bounce-back season in Calgary. Now, a player who might have some surprise value this year, I guess we'll check out the expansion team. We'll grab Jared McCann for the Seattle Kraken. And he rode some high percentages on his way to 32 points in 43 games for Pittsburgh last year. But McCann is also looking at a significant role increase in Seattle. In fact, with Yanni Gourde out to start the season, it looks like McCann is going to be centering the first line between Jaden Schwartz and Jordan Eberle. And so that's a pretty nice upgrade in terms of opportunity that should offset the likely statistical regression coming for Jared McCann. And so if he gets to play that significant role over a full season, he should put up some decent numbers in Seattle. Now, if there's a team that is loaded for fantasy in this division, I think it's got to be the Edmonton Oilers because the top end guys are really top end guys. You've got Connor McDavid will be the consensus number one in the vast majority of drafts. He's coming off a historically great season. And then Leon Draisaitl is probably the second or third pick in most drafts. So that alone gives them huge value. But you also have people who are along for the ride. Defenseman Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie rack up a lot of points playing with those guys. And then you have the supporting forwards. Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Kyler Yamamoto, maybe even Jesse Puljujarvi. All these guys get the benefit of playing with two of the most productive players in the game. Then, if there's a team to avoid for fantasy purposes, I guess it's the Anaheim Ducks. And they have some young players with potential. And one of them is Trevor Zegras, a tantalizing playmaker. But he's probably going to be the big dog on the Ducks this year. And this is a team that had, two players who had more than 25 points last season. And that's a 56 game schedule. But if you prorate that out over 82 games, that's two guys who had better than a 37 point pace. So there's not a lot to love there in terms of fantasy. And, maybe you want Trevor Zegras and you'll try Ricard Raquel or Max Comtois. But after that, it could be pretty tough for the Anaheim Ducks.
Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our local experts on Locked On NHL in the Pacific Division. Make sure you are tuning in and subscribing to all of these shows wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So Spotify, Apple, Odyssey, Audible, really wherever you find podcasts, honestly. And of course, make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel, and you can find me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto, and you can find my show, Locked On Calgary Flames, wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.